Hans Niemann has just absolutely destroyed Levon Aronian in the Julius Baer Generation Cup. It feels like every day right now we just have this fresh new drama, and this one here was Hans playing white. It was over in 21 moves. Let's see what happened. So he kicks off with e4, Levon goes for a Sicilian, knight f3, d6, we have an open Sicilian here, and after these couple of knight moves, now we had a6 from Levon, the Najdorf variation. And now here Hans plays a very rare move, so tons of moves have been tried in this position, but Hans goes for this bishop to d3. Now it's unusual because you block the queen down the d file, the bishop staring at its own pawn, but there's obviously some deep ideas connected with this. Often you see white going f3 here, bishop e3, queen d2, castles queenside, g4, etc. So these are some of the plans there, but in a moment we actually see the bishop nudge back. So it's black to move, e5 is actually the most common here. Then the knight can drop back, bishop e7. Now if black plays like this, you suspect that this bishop's just going to sit there for a while. But because Levon goes pawn g6 now and fianchettos his bishop, so after f3, now the fianchetto, well here we see a really weird backwards developing move of bishop to e2. And the idea is that the queen now defends the knight from this dark squared bishop, which could attack it as a loose piece if this knight ever moves. However, much more common there was bishop to e3. So already we have a new position in the Lichess database here, although you don't always know how up to date the Lichess database is. I've noticed, for example, that a number of games played this year, such as the candidates games, aren't yet into the database yet. But okay, showing us a new game right now. Knight beats d7 from Levon now. He could have castled, he could have gone knight c6, but he goes for this one. Often this knight wants to travel to e5 and c4 at the right moment. And now we had castles kingside from Hans Niemann. Again, a bit more unusual. Normally bishop e3, queen d2, castles queenside, g4, h4 stuff. Those are the usual plans. So very interesting way how he's handling the position. b6 now from Levon, preparing to develop the bishop. Bishop e3, bishop b7, queen d2, queen c7, and so Levon's just holding off castling his king right now, and here Hans gets very aggressive on that king side. So most commonly you see things like, say, rook f to d1, castles, a4, rook c8, white just plays a bit more slowly, lands a piece on d5 at the right moment, maybe tucks back with knight b3. But what we see Hans doing here is g4. So he's really blending these different ideas, but with the king castled on the king side. And Levon's now just a bit thrown. So he should go pawn to h6 to stop this g5 advance, kicking his knight. But he brings the knight immediately to e5. He allows the pawn to kick on. He's now given the square on d7 when he moved the other knight. But the problem now is that Hans' attack is just steamrolling through on the king side very, very quickly. So b3 was now played to cover c4. It prepares to go pawn f4, but doesn't allow the knight to jump into this square. And now here Levon just commits a terrible blunder, really uncharacteristic for a player of his quality. So he plays pawn e6, critically weakening this d6 pawn. What he should do here is start with rook to c8, a move he finds in the game but at the wrong moment. So you attack this knight, which can't be defended in any sensible way, and after it jumps into d5, the best move here is to drop the queen back. White could go c4, again this is the top engine line, and now you go e6. You kick the knight once it's committed into d5, and now you've just got time to start going pawn h6, trying to undermine those extended pawns, and there's no knight d to b5 stuff, picking up a tempo on the queen. That's the key thing about all of these variations. Still white's a bit better, but black's well in the game there. But here we had pawn e6 immediately, and the reason this is so bad is that now when f4 comes, well, this knight needs to move away back to c6. This would have been best, but there's big problems with this pawn. Now you can land this killer blow. After pawn takes, knight takes, yes, you've given a piece, but you gain 2 pawns for it, and you check the king. And now this is a really key position. This is how Levon should have played, And at this moment here, because the knight has left e5, you can't now capture on e5 with a pawn. So best here would be to bring a rook. Black brings a rook, and then you carry on with f5. White's still got an advantage of about a pawn, pawn and a half here. Now this is how Levon should have played, knight c6. But now he goes rook to c8, that same idea, but this is even worse because Hans lands, there's a sentence, this absolute hammer blow of a move on b5 here with the knight. So the pawn recaptures, knight takes. Now yes, the queen picks up on c2 in this line, but this time after check, king moves, well now you're picking up an entire knight as well, and the attack rages on, even though you've not even sacrificed material anymore in this line. And you don't even have time to take the queen, get those ones off, because then you crash through with check here. King goes somewhere, you pick up on d2, you're attacking this bishop, you're attacking this bishop, the rook. It's just game over basically, massive advantage, about +8. So here after this pawn took on e5, the best was actually to bring a rook across, defend this f-pawn. Still, it's just a terrible position. But we had knight takes on e5, played by Aronian. He's trying to open counterplay, maybe check here one day, open up this bishop. But now a very simple and powerful move from Hans. He goes queen b4, coming onto this diagonal, x-raying the black king, and Levon is just completely busted. This is +15 now for white. You could go rook c5 to block the diagonal, but then white doesn't even have to take this bishop or this rook. You can actually take here as the best move. Everything's hanging. It's just completely game over. But Levon takes here on e2. He picks up that unprotected bishop, and now knight f5, double check from knight and queen. This finished the game on the spot. Levon resigned here. Why did he resign? Well, it's mate in 2. If you come back here, this is mate in 1. And if you come here, we check, king c6, the knight can hop back. You don't even need to pick up the queen. This is actually checkmate. Devastating attack from Hans Niemann. If you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, do consider doing so to never miss a future video. And if you want to see another epic chess game, click here. Thanks very much for watching and see you soon.